So I've got quite strong views on this, which is that everybody wants to be a bodybuilder, but nobody wants to lift no heavy ass weight.
Have you ever spent weeks trying to improve your hammer curl, for example? That's because you read an article on T Nation that spoke about how it attacked the biceps slightly differently, and you felt like that was what your life was missing. If you know who zyzz is, yeah, that's it. Like that's the certificate. Like if you know who zyzz is, this will all completely make sense to you, and you'll just be sat there nodding along.
Did the squats and milk program, which is so 3 times a week. You take your 10 rep max, you do a set of 10, and then you keep the bar on your back, and you take 5 to 10 deep breaths, and you do another rep, and then you keep doing that until you hit 20, and then you have a gallon of milk a day. So I was having a gallon of whole milk. 4.7 liters of whole milk every day, just sat in class. And I remember doing this and like throwing up raspberry whey down my top while I had the bar on my back, doing these like squats and milk, being so out of breath.
I'm joined by Jonny and Yusef from PropaneFitness.com. Look at
Hello.
that. So good to see you. Are you doing some boxing?
I was just enjoying the effect.
You're like a cat. Today we are talking about the fitness menopause. It's something that we've dropped on podcasts for the last couple of years. I'll start off. I'll try and give a broad definition so everyone knows what we're talking about, and then we'll take it from there. So fitness menopause was something that I'd identified within myself toward my late 20s when I'd been doing brolifting, fitness stuff, bodybuilding for a while, and realized as I became chronically aware of my own mortality as I approached 30, realized that I was getting out of breath going up a big hill, and I was kind of a little bit bored of just doing, chest Mondays and chest Tuesdays and chest Wednesdays and curls and stuff like that, and training purely for aesthetics. And I was just disenchanted. I kind of lost my love with training. Certainly lost the motivation to do it without really grinding myself to get out of bed and go to the gym. So then just started trying to do different things. The fitness menopause describes a period, I think, in a lot of fitness people's lives who perhaps have just entered into the world of training by doing bodybuilding or bro style lifting, from just the age of teens or early 20s or whatever, and then never tried anything else. And as they approach their late 20s, they think, oh, hang on, like this maybe isn't fulfilling me in quite the way that I thought. How do you think about that as a definition? You reckon that's about right?
I think that's about right. It applies to a very specific subsection of people. And are we millennials or are we...
No, technically, yeah, it's 84 till 96.
Okay, so I think in that case then, millennials tend to fall into this bracket quite well because there was this surge of the popularity of weightlifting, bodybuilding, that kind of stuff, kind of coinciding with T Nation's rise and fall, and then bodybuilding.com and all of these like Simply Shredded. Do you remember that?
Oh god,
yeah,
Simply Shredded. Jesus Christ.
So all of those kind of things. And so most 18 to 22-year-old guys got swept up in this. And usually it was the only kind of physical activity they did, apart from maybe five-a-side, which is the other most popular young male activity. Standard issue.
I've heard.
So yeah, I think most people will have gone through a few years of that. And Jonny and I always say that the minimum entry requirement to even consider having been in the fitness menopause or gone through it is you have to have done 3 to 5 years of pec deck and leg press.
That's just how I think. Anyone that when you feel like you're one of these people who did something before it was cool. So I think we all did fitness before it was cool, and now there's loads of people wanting to do fitness because it's a bit cool. So people are getting into the strength sports and starting, and you just think you're just missing
real fitness.
You haven't had the induction.
You haven't had have you ever spent weeks trying to improve your hammer curl, for example? That's because you read an article on T Nation that spoke about how it attacked the biceps slightly differently, and you felt like that was what your life was missing.
Yeah. Did you practice 2 kilogram Arnold press just so that you could really get the form down? Yeah. So you're totally right. Here's my reasoning for why I think people fall into bodybuilding. Timing's one of them. So definitely, if you're anyone, probably now in 2020 between the age of 26 and 34. Probably you'll have been seen this rise, tnation, Muscle and Fitness, stuff like that.
It's if you know who Zyzz is.
If you know who Zyzz is, yeah,
that's it. Like that's the certificate. Like if you know who Zyzz is, this will all completely make sense to you, and you'll just be sat there nodding along. If you don't know who Zyzz is, this will be like, why? I quite like fitness.
Go Google him. Yeah. So here's my reasoning. Timing's one of them. But my other reason, and this is why I think the front end of the bodybuilding and fitness training, that kind of fitness training funnel continues to get good traffic in the front end, is that it's the type of training with the lowest mechanical barriers to entry and the lowest amount of skill requirement of any physical sport on the planet. Like, I can take anyone who's listening, I can take your mum into the gym tomorrow, teach her a supinated bicep curl to probably within about 80% of the compliance and proficiency that I can do it in after 15 years of training.
Yeah. And then you can increase her back weight, get her a sick taper.
Yeah, get her jacked. Get your mum jacked so that she looks real mean when she's walking the dog. But yeah, the barriers to entry to doing bodybuilding are so low. And people don't like doing stuff that they suck at. You know, like think about weightlifting. The snatch is essentially an impossible movement. Like, it's completely ridiculous.
Physically impossible.
And some people just do that and another one all their life. You know, Klokov just does variations of snatch and clean and jerk, and he's in his 40s and still massive, but you get my point. Like, people don't like doing stuff that's challenging mechanically because they feel silly, whereas you can go into a gym tomorrow and get externalized rewards, socialized rewards. Don't really need to worry about what the internalized gains are. It's like, oh, well, I can't really touch my toes anymore, and maybe my shoulder aches a bit, but look at that, I've gained an inch on my chest.
Well, we've all been involved in like a big guy in the gym. You're like 19, big guy in the gym who's been like strutting around, working up to a big set of incline dumbbell press. He comes out, he goes like, mate, use hand off for dumbbells for us, please. And you have to pick up the dumbbell and give it to him, and then you watch him go.
Partial reps.
Yeah, because he feels good at it, because he can just set his own rules. Like, no one's checking his form on his incline dumbbell press. It's like, well, I lifted the biggest dumbbells in the gym, mate.
So that's like the entry level, isn't it? The way you can even set your own rules for range of motion and everything else. Powerlifting is kind of the next level up, but it still is very much, unfortunately, like the sport for non-athletes.
Yeah,
and it's why it's got the reputation of, like, at least a beginner and kind of low intermediate level, is that it's just got the reputation of like people who were never any good at any other sport or athletic activity. And
but it's not wildly athletic, is it? Well,
no, and it allows people to justify being fat, not being able to touch their toes, like all of the kind of things that would normally just not fly in another sport. But instead,
it's almost too much caffeine, Haribo during training.
Like at competition, you see people that clearly do not need like intra-workout or intra-competition Haribo and burgers and stuff, and then they go out for a McDonald's at the end of having done 9 reps that day for the competition.
So I am gonna defend powerlifting here. I feel like people will be expecting me to. I completely agree with that until you reach like national level, especially like national level in the US and then international level.
100%.
Like when you bump into a Polish bloke who's pulling like 410 with like neck striations,
what's happened there is that you've got someone who actually, that's someone who is an athlete, and you've put them into a sport.
Well, often when you look at it, like when you look at their background, it's like, so like Tom Martin, you look at his background and you're like, 100-meter sprinter. Yeah, of course. But like people who like fell out of, I think the people who tend to like get like were doing rugby at a really high level, stop playing rugby, and then they're like, oh, well, I lift weights, so I might as well just do that. And then before they know it, they're like podiuming at a national level, and they can't really figure out why. Because where's the competition gone?
The thing, it's a good point about the low end level on powerlifting. But being honest, like, watch a shite Sunday League football team play. You know, you're not exactly going to be watching fucking Cristiano Ronaldo go at it. So you're right at the bottom end of that, but at least those football players aren't just picking the ball up and running with it and saying, oh, well, mate, this is actually a little bit better for my pec development. So it doesn't really matter. True. So, yeah, I think that's why the two main reasons are path of least resistance, that it's kind of quite well known and easy to do and easily accessible, and you can get a membership at some big corporate gym for like £15 a month, which is phenomenal, right? Like, the fact that you can get 24-hour gym memberships in a city for 15 quid a month is just insane. But they're going in there to do, what do you think a typical bodybuilding program consists of? Maybe 25 movements? Like 25 main movements?
Yeah. 5 days a week, five exercises a session.
Yeah.
Yeah, something like that.
Yeah.
I mean, yeah. I just think that, like, people who are starting the fitness journey now, it's just shit for them. Like, it was way better back when no one really knew what the crack was. And there was
you could go years without making any progress.
But, like, in the back of your mind, like, I remember spending 40 quid on Surge workout fuel from T Nation, pretty confident that it was bullshit. But there's that thing in the back of your mind of, like, yeah, but what if it is the type of carbohydrate in there? Like, what if it is the fact that it is leucine rich, and this is going to be the thing for me? This is going to be like, when everyone's looking at me going, like, fuck, have you seen the progress Johnny's made? It'll be because of the Surge workout fuel.
I remember thinking, like, oh, it's got cyclic dextrins in. Maybe that's exactly what. And you look it up, and it's like, it's the main component in Febreze spray.
Yeah.
And you're like,
I remember figuring out, like, is it anthocyanin, the ingredient in Omega-3G? When you look at, like, some blueberry yogurts and they've got anthocyanin, and you're like, okay, maybe it's not that. When, like, my Onken yogurt also has a bit of it in, like, it's probably not that special.
But then you look over and your mum's eating some and just got, like, striations in her bicep, and you're like
separation between a bicep and tricep. You're
can I have some of that?
Yeah.
Mum, how long have you been eating that blueberry yogurt from Uncle?
I don't know.
Fucking massive. You better go clean your room. Yeah.
Okay, Mum.
So that's why I think people fall into kind of, let's say, this path of least resistance. And here's the question that I want most people that are listening to try and answer. And it is, if you're doing a bodybuilding program, or if most of your training career has been spent doing bodybuilding, typical bro style training as a guy or a girl, do you like bodybuilding or do you like exercising? Because those are not the same thing.
Yeah, so I've got quite strong views on this, which is that everybody wants to be a bodybuilder, but nobody wants to lift no heavy ass weight. No, my thought is that everyone has.
Johnny's lost it.
It's true. It's one of the ancient axioms, isn't it? Of, like, written in stone by Ron Coleman, PhD. Ron Coleman et al.
So the reality is that everyone has bodybuilding goals. There is such a small percentage of the world, and that they're like a weird kind of like fetish group, aren't they? Like feeders and that kind of thing, that don't want less fat and more muscle. So they're like 0.01% of people that have this weird fetish have like an inverse bodybuilding goal. But
it's still a bodybuilding goal.
Okay, let me rephrase the way that I put it. Do you like bodybuilding training, or do you like exercise?
So I think that probably most people, I think the number of people who like exercise probably don't like it because it's exercise. If you see what I mean, like no one likes bodybuilding necessarily. No one really likes even like the more modern stuff. Like, I know people get really obsessed with certain aspects of powerlifting, certain aspects of CrossFit. They just like what they think it's going to do for them, or what they kind of get out of it. So, like, they get a little bit of props on social media. People share their new lift. They hit a new Fran time. And my experience has been throughout fitness, like, I desperately wanted abs because I was convinced that was going to improve my life. Got it, and I was like, all right. And then I desperately wanted a 300 kilo deadlift because I was like, well, that means I win if I get a 300 kilo deadlift. Got it. I was like, okay. And then, like, the goals just kind of drift past, and you're like, well, I could get lean again, but doesn't really do much for me. Like, I could add 10 kilos to my deadlift, but like that'd be a proper faff.
That's maybe what fueled the fitness menopause for you, is that you have to hit all these big achievements, and then you're like, didn't really. Yeah,
Well, so
exactly
I think that people attach onto a mode of exercise because they believe that the outcome of it will be a huge deal for them. And to be honest, it is. Like, I think that probably what I've gained from fitness is a big deal. But you kind of hit these milestones, and then you think, all right, well, I'm kind of done with bodybuilding now. Like, I've done it. I've taken a progress photo. I'm really happy. Maybe I should start doing something that's competitive. Maybe I'll get into triathlons or.
I think there's a good point to be made there about the fact that you kind of do need to pay your dues. If you've got this unticked box with regards to physical development in some other area, it is a good idea to tick that first. It's that Naval Ravikantism where he says it is far easier to achieve your material desires than to recount them. And it's like, I would much sooner not be bothered about being lean because I've been lean than not be bothered about being lean just because I gave up. You know?
Because you'd always have that like sense in the back of your head.
I wonder what it's like if I'm single-digit body fat.
So like Jonny definitely ticked that box hard in that, like, you know, you competed at Worlds, and then, you know, then realized that actually, like, placing at Worlds and winning Worlds is so much more effort compared to getting there. That, like, because the curve of like return on investment suddenly
for the people that don't know, what is Worlds?
World champion.
It's just the top. It's just the highest level in IPF. But like, honestly, like, which is what?
What's IPF?
Oh, so there's the International Powerlifting Federation, which is often seen as being like the best one to be in because the rules are the most strict. They've got stringent drug testing and all that sort of stuff. I think they're technically like the most strict on depth and like what you can and can't do in the bench press and all sort of stuff. Then there's the GBPF and there's the EPF, which is the European Powerlifting Federation. So if you place at nationals, you go to Europeans. If you do all right Europeans, you can sometimes be selected for Worlds. So that happened to me.
Worlds, and you've got GB singlet, t-shirts,
I do.
all
the whole
stuff.
thing. To be honest, I think it's because Tom Martin couldn't do it that year. Like, seriously. But
Thanks,
you know,
Tom.
at least I'm honest about that. I think I get really riled up by people who, I'm going to offend some people here. I get really riled up by you've got like people who are legit, like really strong, been training a long time, like should be at Worlds, and then you've got people who get to Worlds because a sort of an administrative process that where a box needed to be like someone needed to fill a form in, so you've gone to Worlds, and like I just don't think they're the same thing, personally. But anyway. So like that's,
I can hear your tiptoeing around the issue that you're trying to get to.
So the reason is I watched Tony Cliff in the GBPF Facebook group say something like, I can't remember exactly what he did, but it was something like, everyone's a paper champion these days, or everyone's got a medal and everyone's been the Europeans because of like, they competed where there was only 2 people in the weight class, and he really, really, like, people got really offended. And I can see why they got offended, because he is like discrediting a lot of people. But the reason why I don't really like sort of saying like I went to Worlds is because I honestly, I don't really feel like I deserve to be there, because I think I went there because Tom Martin could. Like, if Tom Martin had gone, he'd have probably medalled, whereas I didn't.
Well,
so
mean,
like,
you have the singlet from that year and not Tom Martin.
That's true.
You know,
that's
say
true.
It however you want.
I don't think Tom Martin actually has that singlet at all.
Motherfucker. Have you considered getting it framed, or is it framed?
Yeah, you told me. No, I have it like, so I have my European one, and then I have when SBD realized like, whoa, we should really put some money into this, and it stopped just being like a Union Jack, like ironed onto a singlet, and it started being like a full that you couldn't buy. It's just in my drawer.
Dude, you should do it. So I told you this story. Sonny Webster had his from, I think, the Commonwealth and from the Olympics.
So fair enough.
Framed with like a special bracketed light, downlighting it. And like, fuck it, man. I think, you know.
I think if I'd been to the Olympics, I'd do that too.
Bro,
I just don't
you've
see
been
it
to
as
the
the
highest.
same.
You have made it to the peak of the sport that you chose to put most of your fitness career into. I think that you deserve it.
Okay. Well, thank you. I see why you think that. That's nice.
Even though I disagree.
Can we just do a little aside just about Tom Martin? Just because
Can we explain who he is briefly, please?
Yeah,
because you've dropped his name about 20 times.
He's a guy who he went a bit viral like a good few years ago now, probably 6-7 years ago, because at 83 kilos he deadlifted 340, and everyone was 340 kilograms. Yeah. So I think
of the heaviest thing you've ever moved in your life, ever. Probably even the heaviest like single object that isn't like a car that you've ever seen in your life. Heavier than that. Think like small cow.
And so and he didn't look like a lifter. He was like came straight out sprinting and just happened to have a freak deadlift. Like obviously a lot of training as well. And then people were commenting being like, this isn't real, or this is on drugs or whatever. And then he started to go up a weight class, competed against Jonny. There's a great video on Instagram of him on the podium doing a juddery deadlift, and then puts it down and the camera just pans to Jonny and he's just going.
Because I'd just come off the platform after trying to pull 300 kilos and farted at nationals. So like it didn't even budge. It didn't even budge because he like, and then I think Youssef heard it because he was standing behind me, but no one else heard it. Thank God.
What happened there? Did that mean that you lost your bracing tension or what?
Yeah. You put all
because a little bit of fart came out.
You put a belt on. You're trying to create all this like intra-abdominal pressure.
How much fart was there?
Just enough to just take the edge off.
And you're like, because you don't want
everything to do a max deadlift.
What's it called? Turtle head. Like you don't want that.
Prairie dogging. You don't want it to be prairie dogging. Yeah.
So
I just missed 300, and then Tom comes and has his turn. And
so this guy, like he hit his kind of sprinting menopause, probably at the top of his game regionally with that. Found that he had a what do they call it? A penchant for deadlifting. Went up a weight class, hit very good levels in the IPF. Got sick of all of the bollocks around that. Got loads of drug accusations. Left the IPF. Went up like 2 more weight classes. And just got absolutely huge and increased his deadlift by like 100 kilos.
And then started competing in a non-tested federation.
Yeah. And I don't think he's never come out and said, like, I've started taking drugs now. But it's quite clear when you leave a tested federation and go and compete in a non-tested federation.
And all your lifts go up. It's fairly
hugely
clear.
As well.
Yeah.
It's insane. He's squatting, I think, over 400 now. He's pulled 420.
Tom, shout out, man.
The 2 most impressive things I've ever seen him do. One was at that competition where he comes out, no hype at all, barely even a facial expression, misses like a 270 squat in the bottom, so like goes all the way down, tries to drive up, can't even budge. You're like, hard lines, Tom, good try. 3rd attempt comes out exactly the same weight and smokes it.
So impressive.
Like, who is this man?
A lot of caffeine that he's
and
had
then
in between the lifts.
There's a video on Instagram of him passing out mid squat and like mid rep, and he still nearly locks it out. Like that's why when people say, when you just said powerlifting is sort of full of people who aren't very athletic, like there's a video of Tom cleaning 180 like it's nothing.
Oh yeah.
Christ.
So what I'm saying is like at the beginner and intermediate level, like the barriers to entry are very low, and then as you approach the top, the curve flattens so quickly, and to then go from even at like worlds level, as you said, to go from attending worlds to placing at worlds becomes like
different league.
5-year difference.
Insurmountable task.
Yeah.
So, okay, so that's I think a nice little bit of framing. So I think, again, for the people that are listening, my main question is, do you enjoy a bodybuilding style of training? Do you enjoy chest on a Monday and legs on a Tuesday and shoulders on a Wednesday and blah, blah, blah? 5 sets of fucking 10 to 14 or whatever it might be, and I'll do me warm-ups and I'll do me external rotations and all that stuff.
Sevens.
Everyone loves that.
Partials.
2 kilo plate.
Partials. Like, is that what you enjoy, or do you enjoy exercise? Because especially for a lot of guys that are listening, but some girls as well, you'll have done a bunch of sports at school, probably after school club, something like that. Maybe you played football or rugby or cricket or, baseball, American football, whatever it might be. And then you get to college or uni and realize that there's distractions of drinking and partying and getting in relationships and stuff like that. And then you think, well, I need something which is flexible in terms of time, doesn't have very many barriers to entry, and bolsters my confidence in a very socialized way rather than in an achievement sized way. And I just think what it leads a lot of people to do is get to their mid to late 20s and think, fucking hell, I haven't really actually indulged my desires in terms of a physical output for a very, very long time. The domain that I've been operating within hasn't actually made me feel that much better at all. I've looked jacked, do whatever, but now I'm going to try. I wonder what yoga's like, or I wonder what fighting's like, or I wonder what Brazilian jiu-jitsu's like, or I wonder what CrossFit's like. And then inevitably what you see when people pivot and make that transition is that firstly because there's novelty effect, but secondly because they perhaps genuinely have found something that they enjoy as a sport or as an athletic pursuit, their compliance goes up. And when their compliance goes up, their training volume goes up. And when the training volume goes up, their condition and their progress increases. So you actually realize that perhaps stopping doing a bodybuilding program, which you low-key hate, might be one of the best things you could do for your bodybuilding goals by switching to something else. Now, there's a couple of caveats. If you want to keep on making growth and gains, you need to make sure that whatever you're choosing to do has some form of loading. It also needs to have some form of progressive overload in there. Also needs to have some form of intensity. You know, like no one's getting jacked doing yoga unless it's a very specific type of yoga, which is like a lot of power yoga with, yin yoga isn't getting anyone jacked. But yeah, my point is, I just think a lot more people than realize it would be significantly happier doing a different type of sport.
I think it kind of
only
depends
if they've
on
been through the initial phase.
Yeah.
Why do they need to do that? Why do they need to go through the initial phase?
Everyone has to gain a basic level of muscle mass and strength, and there's 99% of people who I see who are untrained, like most of their problems could be fixed by just getting a body weight squat and a body weight bet, just hitting basic targets with even like rehab injury type stuff. When you see, we've talked about this on other podcasts, I think, when you see girls wearing Ugg boots and they've got like valgus knee and their hips just, and they just look really like floppy and they're always complaining of hip issues. And you're like, if you just could squat 60 kilos, so much of your life would be sorted out.
Yeah.
Clamshells twice a week.
Those things with the bands and
yeah.
I think it's just gaining general body awareness and what it feels like to push yourself physically. I think it's really easy to gain experience with that, with like a barbell or machine-based resistance training. So something that I saw when I did CrossFit for 6 months was there's people in there who clearly like found CrossFit off the like you, Chris, like found it off the back of having spent a lot of time doing like bodybuilding based training, and a lot of it, like someone gives you a dumbbell, you're like, no problem. I've seen a dumbbell before, done a lot of shit with a dumbbell's fine. Like the more sort of, and kind of the base layer like of Maslow's hierarchy in CrossFit is sorted. Like they can give you a barbell, they can say, Chris, jump onto that and you're fine. But what you're laughing at?
I just love like the concept of being given a dumbbell and be like, I'm familiar with one of these.
I know how this works.
Well, that's just how I felt about like if there was a CrossFit workout where like Tim stands up and goes, barbell here, dumbbell there, and I'm like, I can do that.
Got it.
But if it's like run, like whoa,
hey, come on, mate. I didn't fucking sign up for this.
Hold on. Rub that out, mate. Just rub that line out.
Yeah.
But yeah, so like I think when people, you also see the person who's like, it's their first CrossFit session and they've maybe never trained before, and the idea of doing like a push press. If I said to either of you, do a push press, you're like, yeah, fine. Like, mate, I've done push press. Like Youssef's done the bodybuilder shoulder spec 6.
Oh God, yeah.
Like we've all done a push press.
Yeah.
So like you put that, and we've also all like taken a set to failure, done like pushed ourselves physically beyond where we thought. And I think you do that.
I've push pressed 110. That's my PB.
There you go. So someone gives you a barbell with 110 on, and you're like,
right.
I firstly, I kind of know what I'm capable of here. Secondly, I know what it feels like to miss. Thirdly, I know I have a few technique cues in my mind. Give someone who's never touched a barbell before and say, push press that. They're like,
what's a push press? What's a barbell? How do I pick it up?
Kind of go like,
can I do it with a mixed grip?
Yeah. So, yeah, there's something about watching someone who's moved a lot of barbells around. There's a certain kind of
grace.
Yeah, like you never see this.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean?
I think honestly, man, like a big part of that just comes from doing athletics as a kid. But again, with that, like if there's people listening who did some form, especially with girls, fucking tons of girls at my school were doing like dance or other kind of like dance associated outputs. And you think like your proprioception, your ability to understand where your body is in space and how to move it from A to B is so much more advanced than a fucking donkey kickback. Like, why are you doing like 3 kilo tricep extensions like this?
It's a real regression, isn't it?
Yeah, when you've got tons and tons of biomechanical control just sat latent in your brain.
So is that, I wonder if that's just people like compartmentalizing because like to have a background in dance, like the amount of proprioception you need, like I've done gymnastics for years and I still look at the dancers and think, bloody hell, that's a whole another level. So yeah, if you can cross over those skills, and I'm so grateful that I had a background in gymnastics, because I see so many people at my age or even 5-10 years younger that are like, oh, I wish I did a bit more of that stuff when I was younger and it's really hard now, and they feel really creaky. And to have just had some low level gymnastic skill when you're younger just means that, you pick up any new skill so easily, except anything with a ball. I'm terrible at anything with a ball.
You are bad at everything with a ball. But I mean...
with the Frisbee.
Oh, just anything like that.
Bad with the Frisbee, yeah. That's another really good point, though. Like, think about what your athletic base is, especially go back to guys. A lot of guys might have done, like you say, football or rugby or something as a kid. Like, you have a really solid aerobic base. Really solid. You'll understand how to run. You'll understand how to cut and change direction. And even just going from that to just doing 5Ks is probably not maximizing what you're capable at doing. Obstacle racing or something like that would actually be maximizing your fitness inheritance, I suppose, a little bit better.
I think, yeah.
I don't know. Like I say, I just think, why don't you both give us a 30,000-foot view of your fitness careers and how the menopause hit? I think that would be interesting.
Okay.
Go for it, Jonny.
All right. 15, 16, fat kid, start getting bullied. I was like, right, well, I'm not having that. So watched a Rocky film, started running, realized running wasn't the answer, read a couple of copies of Men's Health, Men's Fitness, started doing loads of curls and like press ups and all that sort of stuff. Then gym sort of progressively worked its way through. Like, that's when I met Youssef for the first time, when he was doing like squats 3 times a week and drinking a gallon of milk a day. I think lots of that stuff. So like lots of I remember like the first time trying creatine and all that sort of stuff, just in this desperate attempt to get lean for the first time. Got lean for the first time, then realized actually like being strong and training so then like did my first bulk ever, and realized that gaining weight and gaining strength was actually more exciting than losing weight and losing strength. And so did like 13 blocks of 5-3-1, hit my first ever like 500-pound deadlift, squatted 200 kilos for the first time with Youssef in, where were we?
Washington? Was it not?
No.
Kenton
gym. And then like that
with security cameras and cages around the security cameras.
Yeah, I squatted 200 kilos in the corner of that gym. And that kind of became an addiction. So I did my first powerlifting competition because Youssef suggested I did. And it literally went like first competition, first squat I ever did, set a regional record. Second squat I did, broke my own regional record, won that competition, went to nationals, came third, went to Europeans, went to worlds. They were like my
might
first,
be something to this.
Yeah, so like there was like my first 6 powerlifting competitions. So I was like, this is quite fun. This, like, I get like the GB kit and all. This is mint. But then,
and what age are you here? 25, 24?
Probably 20. Yeah, 2015 I went to Worlds, so 25.
Yep.
And then kind of after that, trying to juggle it around like propane taking off and like doing more work in the business. And you kind of scratch that itch, so it starts to become less and less interesting. And probably go back a year was when that came to a head, and I was just like, man, like I just cannot motivate myself to. So I moved up a weight class as well. So for the first time in my life, about 2 years ago, stopped being lean all the time, and I was like, I gained quite a lot of weight, and I was dealing with this other like
tactically
side. What?
You tactically gained weight.
Yeah.
It wasn't like you'd let yourself. It wasn't like you'd gone to seed or something. It's that you decided that you wanted to move up a weight class.
So I'd had 4 or 5 consecutive competitions in the 93s where my total hadn't moved. And I was having to like aggressively weight cut for the competitions and all that sort of stuff. So moved up a weight class, hit bigger numbers. So hit like a 250 squat, 312 deadlift, 160 bench, ripped my adductor in the bottom of a squat. And when that happened, I was like, fuck me, man, like all this work.
Got a video of that, haven't we?
Yeah, of my adductor actually. Bing! Yeah, awful. I then had to chase Dexter, who was a puppy at the time, round a roundabout with a torn hamstring an hour later, which I'm convinced was like that was it.
The universe just reminding you.
I still remember though, I remember limping out the house, Dexter slipping out his harness, and then just like bang, and you like before you know it, you like got him in your arms, and you're like, I just ripped my adductor a minute ago, but it was fine there.
Yeah.
Weird. But yeah, so that led to, I remember sat watching a CrossFit documentary, like the latest one that had just come out at the time. Don't know what it would be.
Redeemed in the Dominant, maybe, or Road to the Fittest. Yeah. Yeah,
and I was like, man, like, because you were at the time where you'd been doing CrossFit for maybe 2 years or something at that point. So I did, what's the CrossFit workout? It's like 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, squat, bench, deadlift, bench, clean and jerk.
Yeah, it was at regionals that year. I can't remember, but I know the one that it was.
It's like Cindy or Margaret,
whatever. Yeah, Joanne.
Did that, and I was like, man, that was actually really good fun. Then did 6 months of CrossFit. Then I injured myself again twice in the open. So I was doing 21:59, 21:59 with the deadlifts and handstand walks. And I just approached 140 like, it's just 140. How bad can this be? You get like 7 reps in, and you're like, yeah.
Quite bad.
Quite bad, yeah. And I think I like dinged my hamstring a little bit, did my wrist doing clean and jerk. And now I'm kind of, like, honestly, at the moment, I'm kind of just, fitness is just like totally deprioritized for me. It's a bit of a shame, but it does feel like where I am at now is the thing that I'm aggressively chasing. So if I go back to like 19-year-old me, I was aggressively chasing fitness. I was aggressively chasing being leaner, getting stronger, because of what I thought I'd get from it. And now I think probably the same thing for me is business and like other areas of personal development and all that sort of stuff. Just because I think I know that if I put more effort into my fitness, what I'd get out of it's probably not what I maybe once expected. So that's kind of my journey.
I like it.
Sad thing, I guess.
No, I think it's cool. Seth, why don't you give us yours?
So yeah, met Jonny in like the school gym at the age of 16. I was doing all sorts of stupid stuff, like all the like Pavel Tsatsouline, and I can't even remember the name of the guy who was making you do like 1,000 Hindu squats and Hindu press ups every day. Yeah. It was called like combat core conditioning or something like that. I've got an image of Jonny trying a pre-workout for the first time. Like it became as like a free sample in like a magazine, and then had like 2 cables behind him. So holding onto the cables and doing like a loaded sprint, and then stepping back and doing that again. Then I discovered the Strong Lift 5x5 program.
Sorry to interrupt, didn't you do like an ARM program that was like ARMS MX 5000 or something?
Oh, probably, yeah. Like all kinds of...
Sure there's it, because your original like transformation article, you were talking about doing like really high volume ARM work.
Oh yeah, I've basically done every like free ebook and like ridiculous program that, and like, surprisingly none of it worked. One, because I ate like an absolute pigeon. Then I bought some whey and I had like 1 scoop of it, or like almost a scoop of it once every day that I was training, and I was thinking like, oh, that'll be it. Like despite eating maybe 800 calories a day, started the Strong Lift 5x5 program, which that's when progress started to move up, just because I was using a barbell, doing some kind of progressive overload. Did the squats and milk program, which is where you take, so 3 times a week, you take your 10 rep max with the squat, which there was no squat rack, so I had to just set up the bar onto like
Gymnastic horses, wasn't it?
School gymnastic
Yeah.
horses. Like get underneath it, like squeeze underneath, and then start my set. You do a set of 10, which is your 10 rep max, and then you keep the bar on your back and you take 5 to 10 deep breaths, and you do another rep, and then you keep doing that until you hit 20. And then you have a gallon of milk a day. So I was having a gallon of whole milk, 4.7 liters of whole milk every day, just sat in class. And I remember doing this and like throwing up raspberry whey down my top while I had the bar on my back. Doing these like squats and milk, being so out of breath and just like, and like this was in like a gym where, again, no squat rack. You just have to like fashion together a bunch of kit. So I must have just looked a bit mental. Then went to uni, got a coach based on Johnny's. No, in fact, before this. So I was 59 kilos, stayed around that weight, went to uni, gained 31 kilos over 3 months. So that is half my body weight, by basically drinking a pint of double cream every night before bed, glasses of olive oil between meals, cheesecake in the blender, just like
quality weight then. Real quality weight.
Oh, real quality weight. My lifts didn't go up at all during that period. I was like, oh yeah, it's all muscle because my t-shirts were fitting tighter. So did that, had mutant mass as well. Like a weight gainer that's like 2,000 calories per serving. Lots of vomiting throughout this period, just from like, not from like purging, but just from like being so full mechanically that if you make any sudden movements, it all just comes out.
It comes out.
Well, I mean, if you're carrying a really full pint across a busy bar and someone knocks into you, right, it goes all over the floor. Yeah.
And so after that, got lean. Later on, started to gain more weight again.
Do you remember why you got lean?
Just because this is when we were setting up Propane, we were like, oh, we need a transformation, and then I was like, oh, I'll give it a go. I'm probably like 2 weeks off being lean.
You were like 90 kilos at the time.
90 kilos, and it
I
turned
remember
out
sitting in the kitchen of my like uni accommodation with the two of us and Dan, and we were like, yeah, we'll start a fitness website, and then we all looked at each other like, one of us is going to have to get in shape for this, and you were like, I'll do it. And then I remember you did a rapid fat loss program. You were eating peppers and doing like high intensity interval training and
it was a protein sparing modified fast. Yeah, like 700 calories a day of just protein. And yeah, I think I was just so deeply experimental and just wanting to just try anything for giggles. Later on, did a powerlifting competition. Jonny and I started going to different competitions. Then hired a coach on Johnny's recommendation, who was Eric Helms. We've had him on the podcast multiple times now.
Big.
Got very lean, like silly lean by this point. Like could see pancreas secreting insulin. Like would walk past the window and just see like striations and fasciculations in like the top of your chest and stuff. And like, you know, when you start to see like in your jaw as well.
Yeah.
Had that, got pretty unwell with how lean I was, like just always run down, like super food anxious, super like just dysfunctional,
susceptible to being ill, erectile dysfunction, all the stuff that
all of that, yeah, like really wired all the time as well. Did an Olympic lifting competition, did multiple powerlifting competitions, like smashed the powerlifting competitions in that weight class because I just wasn't a 74 kilo lifter. I was a 83 kilo lifter hiding in the weight class below because I'd managed to like eliminate all body fat.
You got drug tested because you just had such tight delt separation. When it's like everyone else comes off the platform like a bit out of shape, and then there's Youssef when he like as soon as he tensions to pull the bar off the ground, there's like chest just like fans out, yeah. full tricep
fucking
striation.
Peacock. Yeah.
It's quite funny in that situation because in clothes you don't look like you lift. Out of clothes, people are like, no way are you 74 kilos.
Yeah. Which is a big dichotomy, right? Yeah.
So then we're continuing to doing gymnastics like throughout that. And that was kind of what initially got me into weightlifting in the first place, like to condition for gymnastics. Then had an ongoing disc issue, which I remember Chris came to my house and brought like a gift package, which was like an innocent smoothie.
I believe Saurine, like a bunch of drugs.
Voltarol.
Yeah, Voltarol.
Like that was lovely because I
remember the pain was so bad you like couldn't walk. You were tearing up because you were moving and it was hurting so much.
Constantly, just spent a few days just lying on the floor, and like if you have to go to the bathroom, you're like, oh no, it felt like such a journey because it take like an hour to like support yourself over. That culminated in getting ill in hospital with an infection, but then got kind of, I think, a discitis or a just worsening of that vagitis. Lost function of my left leg for a bit. So for about 6 months, lost sensory motor function of the S1 dermatome of my left leg.
Yeah, me too, mate.
So it was like sort of like shuffling around for a few months. Like I couldn't extend my left foot, thinking like, well, that's it. I've finally done it. Like I've ignored all the pain signals, deadlifting, and and it's because it's actually totally because of this like bravado attitude you see online of like, if you don't squat every day to a max, you're a pussy, and if you're in pain, you just got to train through it and all this stuff. And I just like there was literally, I've got a screenshot of like some marketing thing from T Nation of a guy saying, I was taking this micro PA supplement and I gained 15 pounds of muscle even while I was so ill that I had to drag an oxygen canister around the gym with me. And you're like,
if that's not irresponsible marketing.
Do you remember the video that was like, Sebastian Cossette gained 400 pounds on his leg press and dropped 25% body fat? And you're like, oh my God.
Yeah, that's what I need.
Yeah.
Yeah, so did that program, bodybuilding. Well, bodybuilder.
Bodybuilder.
God,
that was developed out of a Black Ops bodybuilding project. Do you remember?
Really well produced.
Fucking hell. You couldn't get away with that now. In the era of GDPR, there's no way you can get away with
Excuse me. Have you got my leg press data?
The era of GDPR and COVID and complaints and like postmodernism.
At a time.
Kids today will never know.
When you could watch a video like that and actually be legit convinced that like this is all you needed was the iBodybuilder program, like how nice life was.
When the Jack 3D pre-workout had illegal compounds in it, like literally had an amphetamine.
1,3-dimethylamyline, I believe it's called.
Was that the derivative of amphetamine or something?
Yeah.
Stuff.
Do you remember the first time you took that?
Yeah.
What happened?
Very itchy face. I also was, because I was taking a lot of NO Explode at the time. That was my
NO Explode.
NO Explode was my boy, because I just thought that the more nitric oxide that I had in my body, the bigger I was. So I was just taking that, and I'm like, oh, fucking hardest, fuck me, fuck off. So like, put 2 of it in, and it was like, the taste is not too bad. It's like lemon and lime sort of
it's lovely
flavor. Yeah, it was pretty
delicious.
Easy to get down. Definitely over measured it. And I remember spending most of that training session just desperately scratching my face. Like, because you get the blood capillaries dilate, right? Is that correct, Scone? Is that why?
I mean, like all of the effects of an amphetamine, like there's always people talking about Pill Willy from Jack 3D. I think I got a 7 rep PB. So I hit my 3 rep max for squats for 10. and then I was really unwell for a week afterwards. Like I kind of stumbled home from the gym. Like, when you start to see the tunnel vision start to kick in,
closes in
your peripheral, and then I was like, and I just went to bed just ill for a few days.
For a long time. Yeah.
I remember looking at because I think I'd gone by this point. We'd been trying like NO Explode and all these different pre-workouts, and I'd even gone like off-piste, because this is back when, in the good old days, when My Protein, the way they worked was, you could just buy bags of individual supplements and sort of make your own thing.
Yeah, Protein. Yeah,
exactly. Yeah, like before they were releasing like the My Vegan bars, when it was done properly. So I was already like mixing like arginine and caffeine and like stirring it all up and like necking it before the gym. So I remember looking at the Tribulus, all the stuff you could possibly get in your pre-workout. Looked at the tub. I'm sure it said like no more than 3 scoops. I was like, bollocks. Like I have a lot of coffee. I have a lot of stuff. I'll try 4. There's no way it's more caffeine than a normal pre-workout. hit I think I got like
Pupils just
230 for 6 deadlift, which at the time was mental, like way over, similar to Youssef. Then went to the cinema, and it was also my high carb day. Went to the cinema, had 2 bags of wine gums, and then just got debilitating cramp in the cinema. So I remember standing outside. I had to leave the cinema, standing outside the showing with my leg on a bin, trying to stretch out my hamstring. I'm like in like seething, like really bad pain, and everyone's walking past me. I'm just like,
you see how long his legs are.
Yeah.
Looking for you. So here's something that I can see that's a universal across both of yours, which is that part of the inflection point where you changed your training methodology occurred due to injuries of one kind or another.
Yeah.
A disenchantment with training, a lack of novelty in the training that you were doing because you'd done a lot of it already. And then,
I think realizing that like all that we've been doing was aggravating the injury and just continuing to ignore the fact that it was just making it worse, and being like, why am I just pursuing loading my body with more and more weight with no particular end point?
Because you can get away with it when you're 18 and you're just basically made of like, you're just like one of those packs of jelly. Yeah, jelly that you drop into water. You just like that.
It's incredible. I remember being able to do like heavy, like I snatch and then deadlift to a max and then go to gymnastics that evening and then wake up the next day feeling absolutely fine. Like just normal, no DOMs or anything. Now, like I'd feel like I've been hit by a bus.
Let's remember remember what I said during my definition. This is why the fitness menopause is such a robust concept, because it is as you become chronically aware of your own mortality. Maybe you get injured once or twice. Maybe your bounce back from the injury doesn't quite happen as quickly. Maybe you realize that your fitness, like actual genuine cardiovascular fitness, hasn't been cared for apart from only in service of a cut. For like a long time. Like if the only time that you ever get your heart rate up is in the months of May, June, and a bit of July before the lads' holiday or like the girls' trip away and stuff. And I think and the same for me, right? All of the different categories that you guys identified there, from training to just have externalized, socialized rewards, to then getting a little bit bored with it, to then getting a little bit injured, to then trying a few things, to then finding something that I'm happy with, and then dialing my training back, and then actually finding a sense of fulfillment and pleasure where training becomes integrated into my life as opposed to being my life, which it was for quite a long time. And I think that it's actually part of a broader menopause which occurs. But if saying menopause so much is triggering, I don't know whether menopause is like a word that we really shouldn't be using, but it's the one that we've chosen. We are going to be in a bit of trouble.
I think people know what we mean.
Good.
Don't they?
Good. Thank you. Voice of reason there. Yeah. I think it's part of a broader menopause that you go through again, especially I think particularly for guys, because we mature so much more slowly. Like there's so much latent maturity that should have occurred in men under the age of 25. And then it kind of like, it's, when you pull a spring and it's starting to load up and load up and load up, and then the thing holding the spring at the back lets go and it goes.
Well, except for the fact that I think you can make a fart joke to a man of any age. Yeah. It's still funny.
Yeah. You've got latent, like old school grandfathered in jokes like that, haven't you? Yeah. So, but yeah, like, I think it's a part of that as well, because it was at the same time that I made that switch to CrossFit that I was like, I'm going to play around with a little bit more self-development, and maybe I'm going to question whether I should deprogram the way that I use alcohol, and maybe I should see if I can start working on my sleep routine, maybe I should do this podcast and start reading and do, a bunch of other things. So I think it all is part of a wider change that people go through in their lives. But I genuinely believe that by looking at different ways to integrate fitness into your life, you can potentially service some of those other changes. If you start to now train for something which is genuinely internally enjoyable to you, which has objective measures of performance, which I think is a really big thing. Like if all that you're doing is subjective measures of progress, i.e. aesthetics and bodybuilding, you're never ever going to actually know if you're making progress. And that's one of the reasons that I think people have anxiety about their training that they never actually know if they're better. You know, it's like, am I actually like, well, I mean, do my delts look a bit better than last year, but like maybe my glutes are a bit more down and blah, blah. Like,
so it's one of the most depressing things about bodybuilding as a sport that, like, even if you're a professional bodybuilder, yeah, you can go by measurements, but really, like, the way that it's ultimately judged is by a subjective panel of judges.
Preference.
And there are Mr. Olympias that have been busting themselves for ages to try it, and they'll just never win because the judges don't happen to like their physique. And you're like,
well, I prefer a physique that's got a little bit more traps. And you're like, well, what the fuck does that mean?
Yeah, I know.
Like, what do you mean by that? Whereas, again, if you've got CrossFit, this is one of the definitely one of the things that you can say about CrossFit, powerlifting, weightlifting. 100 kilos is 100 kilos. Like, it's always going to be 100 kilos. And if you lift it 10 times last week and then 11 times this week, you have made definitively, by definition, you have made progress.
Yeah. Yeah. The thing that is good about, so the thing that's a challenge about most strength sports, most barbell based sports, probably not including strongman, is you are trying to improve such a narrow range of things that it's quite easy to have, like, especially once you've been training for 3-4 years, it's quite easy to have like 6 months, years where you maybe don't make any progress at all. Like, I think my bench stalled for like 4 years. Like, add up the reps done to achieve nothing, like objectively nothing. And you think, well, what's the point? Whereas something like CrossFit, because it's just this broad plane of things you could improve on. I think mentally it's easier.
What it also
it's why you start slacklining, Chris, isn't it?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, that's a perfect example of something that is for no gain other than I think it's quite fun. And Seth, you got to do it with me, and
it's hard.
It's real challenging, but like, I'm not doing it because I think it's going to improve my glute gains. I'm not going to lie and say that it is. There's not a little bit of me that wants to be good at it so that I can show off. Like, I'm aware that that's probably in there.
That's why we do anything.
Yeah. But I genuinely like that. Slacklining, for people that don't know, slacklining, it's kind of like less weird. What's that thing they used to do in the circus?
Tightrope.
Tightrope. It's like less weird tightrope, isn't it? But it's a flat piece of material that you can stand on and walk along, and kind of the real good people can
go
do
like
tricks. Yeah, you wiggle from side to side. But that with a podcast on in the sunshine for an hour is for me what, like, beautiful way to spend an afternoon, especially if it's a rest day from more heavily loaded training. But if you told 21-year-old Chris that my idea of a good Sunday afternoon would be to go and listen to a couple of fellas talk in a room in a pair of wireless headphones and stand on a flat piece of material in between two trees in the park next to my house, I'd have been very, very disappointed. But I guess that shows how our preferences and stuff.
I think most people get into it to begin with because they just want to be more attractive and like more impressive. Like, they want to impress their mates or impress.
Get into bodybuilding, do you mean? Or
like just fitness in general. Like, most people, it's because they want to improve how they look, and they want to improve how they look to be more impressive. But I think once you've we've all entered the phase at which, like, it actually stops being impressive and starts being a bit weird.
So, like, how much do you lift, mate? 300.
Well,
how much?
Even just someone telling you you're too lean
to get there. Yeah.
How much what?
How much have they had to sacrifice to get there? When you see someone that is that lean, you know that they can't have that much else going on in their life. So this is the bizarre thing about what signaling does. Signaling in any form tells you a lot more than just that one signal is. So, okay, what are the second, third, fourth order effects back upstream from whatever I'm seeing in front of me? Like, this particular person who's unbelievably lean, strong, big, whatever it might be, they have to have some deficiencies elsewhere, or they have to have some side effects, should I say, not necessarily deficiencies, because there's been some sacrifices that have had to be made for that. And yeah, as your preferences change across time, I think it's, and the other thing as well is gym bros, especially, they select or they identify a very particular type of caricature that girls don't actually find all that attractive. Like, if you gave a lad that was just a normal fella who was confident because he'd worked on being socially capable, and a guy who was much more reserved, didn't have any of the social capabilities, but did 5-3-1 for a couple of years. The guy that is able to laugh and joke and go on with people in a group is going to be significantly more popular socially and also significantly better with the opposite sex. And the same, I think, goes for girls as well.
Mm-hmm. That's a good point. Like in terms of attractiveness, like from selecting for the things that you're training for, but even within that as well. So we've just posted an Instagram post of the attributes that people typically train for. So that men typically train for when they're wanting to look better is biceps, abs, shoulders, triceps. Like, whereas the attributes that women on average prefer physically in men are glutes, back, and legs. So
is that a study somewhere?
Yeah, I'll try and find the citation, but it basically says that like we are optimizing for the wrong thing. If you're training to look better for the opposite sex, like the things that you think are important are not the things that people find attractive in you.
Do the opposite.
I was saying this to Becca the other day. We were just walking Dexter, and I just had this realization of like, you can tell a lot about someone by how much they barbell row.
Yeah,
like you meet someone with a huge barbell row, and like that person, very patient,
wasn't an accident.
Definitely wasn't an accident. Isn't doing it really for any kind of approval, because like, who brags about their barbell row? You can't see the effect of a barbell row in the mirror. It is pure, just like, I am in the pursuit of self-improvement here. And that's all I'm after. I just want to slightly improve my barbell row over time. So
And
I just don't think there are very many other...
makes you more attractive.
Well, exactly. Yeah, I just don't think there are very many other exercises you can say that of. Maybe a dumbbell, so like any rowing movement. Chin up, probably as well. But even that's a bit... It feels showy. A bit more bicep-y. Yeah, a bit more showy.
Well, I mean, deadlifts.
I don't know. I think like that's the most way you can move, isn't it, on an exercise, pretty much. Yeah. So when people are doing like 3-inch rack pulls, you're like, come on, mate.
Yeah, what's going on here?
Stop it.
Look at that. So yeah, I think, like I say, part of a broader change that people have where they start to remember that they used to do art as a kid. Maybe I'm going to go and take an art class, or maybe I'm going to start doing another language, or I'll re-pick up the guitar. I haven't played that in however many years, or, you know, and this is, to some of the listeners who are older than we are, this might just sound like we're going, yes, mate, that's what getting fucking older is. Whereas to us, we're like, oh, look, my body's changing and my injuries aren't going away as quickly. And it's like, welcome to age, you motherfucker.
Yeah. Well, I would quite like if there's anyone listening who is over the age of 35, 40 and thinks that we're just spouting absolute obvious truisms, then please comment and let us know.
But everything's obvious to someone, isn't it? Yeah. Like if we were genuinely putting out like groundbreaking information here, then that's quite something.
I think Fitness Menopause is fairly groundbreaking. I think when you start to map, and man, I hope that we've red pilled the shit out of some people today. I hope that there's some listeners who will go away and think, I'm actually going to try a different form of training because I don't feel that engaged with my bro style split anymore. I don't really feel like it's benefiting me across the board. I'm sick of having my progress judged purely subjectively by myself, like not even by other people.
There is something a bit like that. So that's very important for people that are at the fall side of the curve, the end of the curve. There are also people who are pre this curve and should not assume that they've hit the fitness menopause. If you've been training less than 2-3 years, you are nowhere near the fitness menopause. And if anything, if you don't lift weights and you're doing other stuff, you will always benefit from you'll still get a lot of the low hanging fruit from lifting weights just for a bit, just get a basic level competence, and then you can do whatever you like.
I mean, that's coming from a proper doctor. I mean, not your doctor. We are not your doctor, but he is a doctor. And what was it that you said before, that a lot of the biomechanical problems and health problems that you get would be fixed if someone could do a bodyweight squat and a push-up?
Oh, in terms of soft tissue, niggling injuries and like all that kind of stuff, absolutely. But there is also just a pure mortality improvement, like all-cause mortality. One of the biggest factors is grip strength. And yes, that's a correlation, and it might be that people who are dying have weaker grip and so on. But if you improve your grip strength, if you improve your total muscle mass, there are so many metabolic, cardiovascular, and just overall mortality improvements and reduction in risk that you can get from that. Plus, you look better, you feel better. Like, it's a no-brainer to lift weights for a bit and just get basic levels of strength.
I bought a Rolling Thunder. Have I told you about this? Do you know what Rolling Thunder is? No. So it's a spinning handle. It's a big spinning. Think of fat grips.
Yeah.
Everyone who's going through fitness menopause knows what a fat grip is. That's another thing. Yeah. So think of a fat grip. So it's a handle that comes down and clips onto a lifting pin that you plate load, and then you've got plates, a pin, and a handle that spins. Yeah. That's wide, and you have to pick that up grip, and get it up to a certain height. Now that is one of the most. It's got the weirdest like strength curve. So I can do like sets of 5, sets of 10 with 50 kilos, but I cannot make 60 kilos leave the floor at all. And it's just grip. It's like pinch and support grip.
Why are you trying to improve your grip?
Banter.
Because why not?
Banter.
Well,
it's just something I've not tried. So I was like, I saw that. I was like, oh, that's pretty good. I wonder what I could do on that. And then lo and behold, a lot harder than you think.
Did you get retargeted with the discount at some point on a pixel? Bet you did.
It was actually Martin Burkhan. Cool. So he's someone who's just been right the whole time, and still is right. But he started working on his grip because I think he couldn't deadlift or something, or he had golfer's elbow or something happened. So he's like, I'm going to work on my grip, and he's gone full deep end with it. Like I think he's competing in Iron Mind competitions and things with it. So Iron Mind are the people who make the proper lifting straps. Like if anyone's seen a set of blue lifting straps, does anyone know what I mean?
Yeah, they're great.
They're like
very good. I've got some
rated R, like they'd never snap.
Big deal.
Put it that way. Yeah.
Have you all got a Captain of Crush as well? A cock?
No.
Have you used one?
Have you used one, Chris?
No, I don't. I do not need to do more forearm work.
Yeah, that's true.
I think your grip's really impressive, actually, Chris.
Yeah, it'd be ridiculous.
We should test your grip.
But
there's crush, there's pinch, and there's support. 3 aspects of grip.
And you've really gone deep on grip, haven't you?
Yeah, by accident though.
Chris has got turgid, and turgid, hasn't he?
Full lean and striated.
So a Captain of Crush is like one of those old school grip trainers. It's looks like that, and you squeeze it together. And
fried chicken.
There's 5 different difficulties. I was like, I'll go for a 3. Like that'll be. I can barely move it. Like it's so they're clearly not just made for like 1 to 5 difficulty for general population. It's like I think number 5, like 2 people in the world have ever closed it or something.
Well, number 5 is just a solid object, isn't it?
It's just a bit of metal,
just a box.
Yeah,
just a metal box.
What's this for?
Also, like I think the world record Rolling Thunder lift is like 120, 130 kilos, and you hear that and you think, doesn't sound that bad. That was literally what I thought. I was like, I wonder when could I do 100 kilos? Not even close. Not even half of that lift I can even budge off the ground.
And you're like, you can deadlift.
You're like, what can I improve here? Like, am I honestly going to try and hypertrophy my forearm? Like,
who's that made for? Like, if you've been to world's powerlifting, like, and your deadlift is your strongest movement.
Yeah.
And you still can't, like...
You're the guy that can't get half of the world record in that thing.
It's people who are doing, like, 5x5 with 300, isn't it? It's when you think you're strong, and, like, you're strongest out your mates, you go to a powerlifting competition, you're like, not that strong. And then you win a powerlifting competition, you're like, I'm pretty strong. And then you go to Worlds, and you just stand at the entrance and just go, well...
And you see, there's a fella with a checkered shirt who walks in and cut off jean shorts and high military boots on.
But that's the thing. That's what you expect, but none of them are like that.
Just to finish things off, Jonny, can you talk to us about the Chinese lady at Finland?
Oh, Jesus. Yeah. Okay. So warm up room. Well, so like there's like Lane Norton, Christoph Wisbicki, like Ray Williams, all these like people you've seen on Instagram warming up in this room. And in the corner is an old Chinese lady wearing like bandages, like medical bandages around her knees, doing tempo squats with 170. and she must have been 60 odd kilos, but it was just like straight line,
just grooving, just
control,
high bar.
Yeah,
like,
and like when you've got like Polish world champions, like, what's that? You know, like you're like, who are you? And no one really. She wasn't competing.
Just
she was
training,
just in the warm-up room getting a session in.
Jesus Christ.
Yeah. But yeah, none of them are that. They're all just like totally unassuming. Like you see them afterwards, sort of in the Finnish supermarket buying some like weird cheese and a sausage or something, and like they all just look like completely normal people. But on a platform, monsters.
Would you not think
Absolute
that's the most interesting thing about people that do these physical pursuits? It's that you could see them out at the supermarket and just think, oh, he's a normal. He's just a normal fella. Yeah, it's like, you know, the people who have done MMA but don't have cauliflower ear. You're like, you're the really dangerous bastard.
You're the one to keep away from.
Because I can identify someone who's done BJJ for 10 years because they've got the ears. But like, if you're one of the people who's managed to protect his ears, you're just a nuclear warhead, a complete lethal weapon, just walking around.
It's very Fight Club.
It is very Fight Club. Look, we've done it. Fitness Menopause. We'll see if anyone's been red pilled by that. Let us know if any of those points resonate with you. I know that they do. They either do resonate with you, or you're lying to yourself about the fact that you don't think they resonate with you, or you're
not trained long enough.
Yeah. So final thing, how long does someone need to do a push-pull leg split before they're allowed to enter the Fitness Menopause Club?
3 to 5 years of pec deck and leg press with no direction.
Or do something like 5-3-1, where like you want to be regularly thinking Monday, you want to be worried about your Friday squat session.
Thursday night, you want to be really like struggling to sleep.
Thursday night, you want to be like, no, I can't go out tonight because tomorrow, like, I need an early night. Why?
It's my threes week.
It's the sixth wave of the threes week of 5-3-1. What do you mean? Why do I need an early night? If that's how you start thinking, and you start and you're going into the gym terrified, and if you miss the rep, you're devastated. Sit in that phase of time for at least a couple of years, then you're allowed to do something else.
Fitness Menopause Club. Look, gentlemen, thank you very much. PropaneFitness.com/podcast / modern wisdom.
Unbelievable. Gets it wrong every time.
Sorry. PropaneFitness.com / modern.
Yeah.
Good.
That's for people who want to do online coaching. Or you can go to /calculator if you want some macros.
I love it, man. Thank you, gentlemen. Thank you very much. I'll get you on again soon. But for now, bye-bye.
Bye-bye.